introductions?
Oh, sure. So yeah, I'm mquander, been playing Prismata for like 3 or 4 years. Some of you guys probably know me. I noticed when I was playing last night, there were also a lot of new faces. So it's possible a whole bunch of people on this stream have just never played me in my life. But I promise that I play Prismata sometimes.
Yeah, mquander's been around for a while, and he's always been a good player. I'm 307th. I wrote the Prismata library. I'll probably do another post on that at some point, but obviously I've stopped doing like active updates. Um, and yeah, I've also been playing for a long time, like around 4 years, 3.5, and came in second in the Golden Cup. And so those are the two commentators, me and mquander.
I'm
And
also
then
Msven's teammate on the pro gaming team Vanguard, uh, which
all
is the
right,
preeminent Prismata
so they've
team.
just started. The show match is underway.
Oh, very good. Ah, I see it. Okay,
So our two
let's
players,
go.
much more importantly than the commentators, there's Msven and Apooche. Um, Msven, he's been around for a long time, but for quite a while he was like more of a top 10 or 20 player. And like just recently, he's been streaming a lot, and like he just recently broke into like top 5. And when I say top 5, I don't mean like fifth. I mean like the top 5 players are so close that you can't really say who's the best, and he's like a contender for best in the world, as is Apooche. Apooche, like he did win the Prismata League. I'm quite confident. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm like 80% sure that he won the most recent Prismata League, and he's just always been a top player. Um, Apooche is more of a math guy, I think, and Msven's more of a field player.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you would characterize the styles of the players. I would agree with you that Apooche is kind of a math guy. Sven, in my experience, he's also, I don't know if he calculates so much during the games, but he's an insane analyst. Like last night, I was playing him just some random game on ladder, and uh, just after, and I was like bored because it was like this P2 easy conduit into Zamora in the fission turret thing, so I didn't have to think very hard. I just pressed the buttons, and then afterwards, like half an hour later, Sven is like, "Hey, I analyzed all of the lines in that, and it turns out that P1 conduit was correct." And I'm like, "Oh wow."
Yeah, like when I
He
said
does
field
that
player,
all
that
the
doesn't
time.
mean
Uh, like
um,
the things he
that
does
shouldn't be
with his
mistaken for
videos.
lazy or anything. Like he definitely works hard and he does the analysis, and that combined with like his steady streaming has gotten him really good. But now let's get to the set, I think,
Yeah, what's
because
going on here in this? I never know when to get centrifuge nowadays since it changed, honestly.
um, I mean, so you have a plan to buy. So centrifuge is definitely much more difficult to use unless like auric impulse is in the set. It's just difficult to spend all your tech. But you just buy centrifuge when this will be kind of a cop out, but you buy it when you want to get the resources. And so like I think in this set you want to use centrifuge for either bombarder or Vi, or like if you're living the dream you could do both. No, it's not happening. So it's bombarder or Vi, and so you buy it when you want to get that off. Bombarder, like it's an interesting unit because it's a very strong absorber. Like in terms of strength, it's just a little bit below energy matrix. Like it's above infusion grid, it's above omega splitter. Um, because of the fact that it has 3 threat when it defends. Like it's not like just an infusion grid, because instead of defending with it when it's on 0 stamina, you defend with it when it's on 3. When you defend with it when it's on 1 stamina. So it's a very strong absorber, but because it's so aggressive, it doesn't actually make for like big econ games. So
It
centrifuge
looks
can be
like
used
Sven
for
is not
fast.
really spinning up for centrifuge here. Like I kind of expected him to get a centrifuge last turn as well, but maybe he has different plans and he just wants to play some like game with Tarsiers, Ferals, and Tia.
Yeah, I think that it looks like that's what he's doing. In fact, I remember when I was watching Sven's VOD, I saw a game where like Apooche went for Fuge and he went for some fancy Fuge setup for like some Tyrion or something. And Sven just like hit him with a Tia. And this is looking very similar to that. That game was like razor close. I think that Apooche ended up winning that. But it was like so close, it easily could have gone either way.
What Sven's
And
doing makes a
obviously,
lot of sense to
Tyrion
me because
not.
the presence of nitrocybe makes Tia substantially better than it would be otherwise.
Yeah, that's true. Especially if you can get it off one conduit. Like with Tia, the less tech you can be wasting after your Tia, the better it is. And so Msven's going to be able to get it off of one conduit and with Sibes, like you said.
One feels
So that's
he's rather locked into Tia now. I don't know what else he would be doing that would match the power of a Vi.
yeah, I think you're right. I don't think Apooche will be going Vi, or I'm quite confident he won't. He'll be wanting to use that feature from Bombarder, just based off of like what Msven is going for.
That makes total sense. I wonder if okay.
Like I wouldn't be surprised if Apooche is kind of reactive. So when he got Fuge, I wouldn't even be surprised if he was like, well, I might go Bombarder or I might go Vi. And I think given the way things are playing out, he's hoping to go Bombarder. If Msven goes Tia next turn, then he most likely won't. Whoa, Pooch is setting up the Vi. Um,
The counter Tia? Or no, the Vi. Okay. Yeah, I mean, okay, so Sven is doing predictably 10 damage next turn. So Apooch has to have some plan to deal with that. If he buys Vi, that leaves in his tech a whole bunch of green and one extra blue. So he'll be able to afford something like Wall Triple Force Field Vi. But actually, he's 1 gold short of what I just said. So Wall Double Force Field Vi might not quite defend. So it's like slightly awkward. Maybe he wishes he had one more.
yeah, he could cancel a Doom Drone if he really wanted that. Uh, Hard to say. I would guess that. So part of what he's thinking might be that he doesn't think Msven will pull the trigger on Tia next turn. Even though Tia is like quite strong with Msven's setup, what it's bad against is someone who's doesn't have any damage on the board and is set up to defend. So it looks like Apooch is trying to call Msven's bluff, and we'll see if Msven was really bluffing. Um, in a sense, I think you could say that this Animus forces out the Tia. Like the Animus makes you weaker versus burst damage, but it's a value purchase if Msven does not go Tia. So I think that Msven probably does have no choice to get the Tia. I think he probably should go Rhino, just because, like you said, it puts Apooch off like Wall Vi, Wall Force Field Vi. On the other hand, like it does he really want Vi versus someone who's like got this much damage?
Oh, you think
Um,
he still might just buy like Bombarder, some Nitrocybes? But if he buys Bombarder, that's using his other blue, so it's like a little bit harder for him to defend this turn. He could play something like Bombarder, Double Feral, Force Field.
yeah, that
But
might be it.
doesn't
So
he want
that might be
Wall a
why
lot
I'm
more than
thinking
Force
that.
Field? I mean, I'm sorry, doesn't he want Wall a lot more than Feral against this Tia?
Like he does, but he also wants a Bombarder because that absorbs for one more than Wall.
Oh, look, Husk is here. I forgot.
Yeah. So Apooch, yeah, like he used the Animus to force out the Tia, and then once the Tia happened, he went for Bombarder anyway. So that's a pretty neat play by him. Um,
Okay, so
with
Sven is going to be
Msven, like
doing
he
like
keeps making Doom drones. I'm not sure if that's correct. Being
hmm,
like it's an economy play, and you want to be able to keep powering your tech buildings. But on the other hand, like the whole point of powering your tech buildings would be to make Tarsiers, which are really good when you're getting aggressive. So I don't know if I'm a huge fan of these Doom drone side turns compared to like just making a Tarsier.
would you
But
make
we'll see how that works out.
well Tarsier or Rhino might be good. You have to calculate, I think, to figure out how awkward the defense is in this situation. Hmm.
Yeah, that's true. Um, yeah, so he's just going to be using the Bombarder for pressure uh, plus infusion grid. Obviously, the ideal is to click it once, but obviously that's not happening in this scenario where he's under so much pressure.
Wow, Feral is sure a big benefit for Sven in this position.
Yeah, it definitely helps versus the pressure.
I feel like Apooche, I mean, he had the extra money to buy 2 engineers right there. I feel like he's going to clearly stabilize and survive the last hit of this Tia. And afterwards, Sven might have, say, 6 permanent damage on the table, which Apooche should be able to handle pretty clearly with Bombarder. So if I were picking a side, I'd pick Apooche here.
I think you're right. Like, I really like how Apooche handled his centrifuge turn. I think like Msven's strategy was really cool, like the really smooth TL line. And it was a good idea to like use it to try to kill the centrifuge. But I think that like Apooche just it was kind of telegraphed, and Apooche just handled it too well. Would be my
Yeah, the
guess. But I mean,
option
this,
value of choosing between Bombarder and Vi with the centrifuge turned out to be really valuable.
yeah. On the other hand, it's not over yet. So next turn will be his highest pressure turn. Like, you know, he'll have that extra feral warden, and he'll have another side coming in. But he really needs to do some serious damage with this particular Tia swing.
Okay, moment of truth, but it looks like it's not too much of a pain in the ass yet for Apooche.
Yeah, being able to defend it with like Doom drones and double feral is quite good for him.
Yeah, Apooche's play has had the advantage of making great use of most of these Doom drones, whereas Sven, it's not even worth holding them back because all of Apooche's damage is actually a threat.
Yeah. So when the dust settles, Msven will have a lot of health tempo from the Tia coming back, and that's cute. He's using the using the 4 damage, using the mega drone to deny absorb.
Wow, that's actually great. That's going to give him like a non-negligible, like enough economy to keep building damage at least. Like
Yeah,
he can keep playing something like Feral Tarsier for a little bit until Apooche starts putting him under pressure. Also, I mean, that's a pretty big exploit. So that's cool.
yep. And so you don't want to hold Tia when it's on like 2 or 3 charges, because then you're reducing pressure. But because he's holding it when it's on 1 charge, his level of pressure remains the same, which is pretty big.
Interesting. So this next turn, Apooche is going to be holding back 3 Doom drones. So that means that 6 damage is wasted, and Sven only has 4. Would you consider holding Tia back again?
I think so. Um,
Kind of why not? Because unless you also click the Cybes, you're not even killing. Oh, well, you'll kill 1 Feral if you click the Tia without clicking the Cybes. And then if you click the Cybes, or at least 1 Cybe, then you'll kill the other Feral. But yeah,
yeah,
I
that's
would
the
also
reason to
like to
go
leave
in,
it.
is to kill the 2 ferals. But I think you're right that it's not worth it.
Because if Bombarder stays back, the Ferals aren't doing that much anyway. Like, well, I guess those 2 Ferals are doing something. The other 2 aren't doing much. Although we have Doom drones to hold even, so really it's not much to kill the Ferals. Okay, so what's going on here? Tia is defended.
Yeah.
As long as Bombarder actually, well, Tia is not really defended. Like, I mean, those Ferals have to keep staying back or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, Sven has like 6 permanent damage, but Sven has this Mega Drone now, so that's 6 permanent economy. Would be nice to have more, but at least he can play Feral Cybe every turn until infinity, for example. Um, Man,
Yeah.
Apooche has a big economy though.
Yeah, Pooch just got the Bombarder click off, which is pretty big. Like I said, there's a big difference between a 2 stamina Bombarder and a 1 stamina one. You know, just getting that value out of the click is really nice. Like
Funny
holding
that
a 2
Apooche
stamina
hasn't built a
Bombarder.
forge yet.
Yeah, holding a 2 stamina Bombarder is kind of like holding a Redeemer, whereas holding a 1 stamina Bombarder is like just good value. Um, So Pooch is up to like 3, just still he still just has 3 permanent damage though, which is pretty rough versus someone who's absorbing 2 per turn by making feral wardens. So I'm still not convinced that Pooch has this, but I think he probably does. Uh, so Msven's goal is just to ramp up enough permanent damage that Pooch can't defend anymore. He has 7, which means that right now Apooche has to make like now he's up to 8, so Apooche has to make like 5 defense per turn, plus the 3 he's absorbing. With 18 economy, he's fairly comfortable with that, though, I think.
Now, the classiest play would be for Apooche to get his own Tia and finish off the game like that.
That would be pretty cool. It doesn't look like he's working towards that because he keeps making Feral Wardens. Although he just ran out of Feral Wardens, so it might finally be time for him to work towards Tia. So Msven's going in. By doing this, Apooche was playing around a lot of threat, so by doing this he kills a lot of good stuff like a Rhino and a Scythe. And he kind of messes with Apooche's granularity. Apooche will probably want to like hold a 2-span Doom Drone to get a bit of granularity. Msven was gambiting, and Apooche is looking at taking it. It's a bit tougher because he doesn't have Feral Warden anymore.
Ooh, good eye.
Looks like he might be able to do it.
I would take it.
Yeah, it looks like a good take. And I think that'll probably clinch it for Apooche.
Yeah, it's impossible for Msven to build any defense on this economy.
Yeah, Msven calls it in. All right, really nicely played by Apooche.
Cool game, asymmetric.
Yeah. All right, they're into the second game. Let's see what we've got. New Wild Drone is here. Msven
Nice.
will probably have a bit more experience with that than Apooche. Apooche has been playing recently, though. So we've got Centurion for Absorb, which makes you a bit less inclined to go for Wild Drones, but they're both still going pretty hard.
But we've got Rager.
That's true. That does. Yeah, that's a good point. That definitely like makes the like why kill a Wild Drone when you can make a Rager.
I don't know anything about the best openings for this new Wild Drone.
Well, if you think about a Wild Drone, it's kind of like it just borrows you 1 gold, because it does the same. Like you pay 2 in an energy. Next turn you don't get a gold. Then after that you get a gold per turn. Whereas a drone you get like 3 in an energy, and then you get a gold per turn. So it's like it's the same thing as a normal drone in terms of gold income. It's just that it costs a bit less upfront, and like you pay 2 gold on the turn you buy it, and then another gold on the next turn.
If you can spend all your gold, that sounds very strong, because 1 gold worth of inflation, that's like a lot, or 1 turn worth of 1 gold inflation is like a lot to get for free.
Yep, that's definitely true. That's why Apooche is going so Wild Drone heavy. Msven has got a few, but it looks like he's sticking more to drones.
So what do you think the optimal economy size is here?
So Centurion is really strong, and like by default, you're expecting around a 24 sized economy with Centurion, I would say. But we don't have any soak, and we have good attackers like Hellhound, Blood Rager, Tia. And so because of that, maybe around like 22. I don't know. You probably still end up. Actually, no. I think 22 might be a good thing to aim for.
That makes sense. By the way, I guess I take it for granted that Defense Grid isn't going to play in this set, because I don't like to get triple blue if I'm not going to be able to spend it on anything but Hellhound, and Centurion outclasses it if the tech is inconvenient, I think.
Yeah, Centurion is just stronger than Defense Grid, and it's
what I
also
don't
like
know
a
is
more
whether to get
convenient tech
Zatron.
setup. Yeah, Zatron you can use as a in-between absorber.
I think this set is going to be really cool and tactical, because so with the defense, okay, you build up, you get Centurion, no problem. With the attack, it's really interesting, because your goal is to like deny a good Centurion for as long as possible, and you have all these weird tools to do it. Like you can get Blood Ragers, you can make all your attack with Cluster Bolts, you can get like Isochronuses, you can click a Zatron. So I feel like both players are going to try to like very carefully work their attack numbers to be just right, to deny absorb until like they have 12 attack on the table or something ridiculous.
It might be that it's so easy to deny absorb that they don't even worry that much about the specific numbers.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, when you can make it up with click and wild drones, then you can maybe you don't have to think very hard, even though it's important.
So looks like Msven is going for a kind of a fast blast forge animus, probably looking at like Hellhound Tarsier. Apooche got a conduit, so we'll see what he wants to use that for. Right now, he's mirroring the blast forge animus, and he decided to stop making wild drones, which means that he thinks that future wild drones will get exploited. I mean, all his wild drones will get exploited, but they'll get exploited sooner. Like the sooner your wild drone is getting exploited after you bought it, the less inclined you are to buy it. Msven is continuing to wild drone up, which I think is pretty reasonable.
So Sven was half a turn quicker on the attack here. I would have picked Sven's position. I always feel more comfortable being the first person to the attackers in these sort of long econ games, but I don't know how to judge whether he was really right or wrong.
I'm not sure about the first attack part. I think you could kind of go either way on that. I think both of them have chosen a pretty good economy size so far. The main concern I have for Pooch is that I feel like he just got his conduit too early, whereas Sven avoided the conduit and therefore gets an efficiency. Like as long as the Pooch isn't spending his green well, Sven's getting a bit more efficiency out of
So you
his.
don't feel like just having the conduit build up into future cluster bolts is a satisfying use?
No, I don't think that is. It's just too slow, and like cluster bolt is like meant to be a green sink. It's not meant to be like that. Buying conduits specifically for cluster bolt is particularly good,
Oh,
and
interesting.
the fact that it's slower is like another strike against it. Like 4 conduits for immediate cluster bolt is better than like 1 conduit for eventual cluster bolt.
The
So
inflation part makes sense, but I thought that I cluster bolt was like similar to Tarsier efficiency in attack, like maybe a little bit better than Tarsier, or maybe basically tied.
it's like a little bit worse, I think,
Oh,
and
okay.
yeah. So Msven is, or sorry, Apooche is revealing that his conduit was for Tia, which makes sense. We shouldn't have, he definitely got it for a reason, and this is his reason. And it
Hmm.
makes sense because Msven is actually not set up for Centurion, uh, which is pretty big. And it doesn't seem like Msven will be able to get Centurion.
Wow, I would not have predicted this outcome.
Yeah, it looks like maybe we weren't paying quite enough attention to like the state of the board, and maybe Msven wasn't. It seems like Msven was kind of so convinced that this was going to go high econ that like he wasn't prepared for the tier rush.
Yeah, I was thinking, oh, it's just kind of like automatic. Like I don't have to look what my opponent's doing. I just think about the most efficient way to get what I want.
Yeah, but this is looking really strong for Apooche. Um, I mean, the way it's going, I would guess that Apooche actually just wins. Like Msven isn't going to be able to get Centurion up. I don't think.
To Sven's credit, Apooche isn't getting a Centurion either, and is right now observing on a Rhino, which is a little funny.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
Oh, but he's just clicking wild drones anyway, so I guess it's not funny at all. Would you click wild drones here?
yeah, I think that's fair, especially when your opponent's tiered. Like by clicking the wild drones, you kind of guarantee he won't be able to get Centurion.
That
And
makes a lot of sense
Msven
to
is
me.
actually defending, and so it might be that like Msven was aware of the possibility of Tia, but just felt he could withstand it because so far Apooche's Tia like isn't actually it's not doing the work that I expected it would.
Well, the funny thing is Centurion can come here, but oh no, it can't come, only one green. Even if it had come, it wouldn't be very impressive, maybe, because wild drone clicks and the damage from Tia will be gone.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So Apooche is going after the wild drones, so he's decided to give up on killing Msven and is going for a value game, which is I mean, Tia is set up so that if it gets good value, you're not like out of a value game, as long as you aren't way over teched, which Apooche currently isn't. Uh, so
Interestingly, their economy size has come out to be much the same at this moment. Oh, well, now
No, I
Sven has
think
built a little
Msven's
bit
got a
more.
pretty decent lead.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what the position looks like after the Tia has run out.
It's looking pretty good for Msven. Like he does have that economy lead, and he's actually doing okay in permanent attack too. So like the only advantage Apooche has is this Tia, which is about to disappear.
I'm kind of thinking to myself about this Tia and these wild drones. So like just very abstractly, if I buy a Tia, it does 21 damage, and that means it can kill 10 wild drones and an engineer. And I only sacrifice 7 drones to make the Tia, so killing 10 drones for 7 drones is okay.
That's actually pretty weak if you think about.
Granted, I had to pay a lot for the Tia, and also wild drones. Maybe they were easier to kill. Like I'm losing option value by clearing them out with the Tia, and
There are a lot of disadvantages. Like a Tia that just killed wild drones would be quite bad.
that seems right.
Because of the fact that like for one, it doesn't happen right away. Like your opponent gets gold out of their wild drones
Mhm.
before they die, and obviously the cost of like 7, 3 green and a red is also quite a big fact. So Apooche is going for the kill on the blockers. It makes sense. He's trying to set up Centurion, but it's kind of rough because like he doesn't have enough pressure to follow it up really. Like Msven is he might have to make a little bit of defense next turn, but not very much. I wouldn't say that Pooch's decision to go after the blockers was wrong though. Like it's not great to kill wild drones when you're not denying absorb, which he wouldn't. He would have had a hard time denying absorb. So Apooche has set it up so that he can get Centurion, and his Centurion will get absorb. On the other hand, Apooche has plenty of defense tempo, so it's like a mixed blessing. Like Centurion is really strong, but it's at its best when it gets its defense tempo on the turn you buy it, in addition to getting full absorb. Let's see. So the way things have shaken out, Msven's at 23 gold income right now, and Apooche is at 14.
And the attack is even, except Apooche has 1 more Centurion.
Yeah. Apooche does have a lot of defense tempo, though. I'm quite surprised this has turned out so well for Msven. Like, I really liked Apooche's Tia, but it seems like maybe I misread that. And maybe
I feel what you're saying. I mean, the first turn Sven had to soak on 2 rhinos to defend the Tia, and it feels like it distracted Sven from. Well, maybe it didn't distract Sven from that much.
it made it so that Msven couldn't get Centurion. So, like, killing rhinos and putting someone off of Centurion is really big. But
But
it seems like Msven knew
I don't
something
think
we
Sven
didn't.
wanted Centurion right then, right? Like all his wild drones were still alive to be clicked. Apooche only had a couple permanent damage, so Blood Ragers can come. Like Centurion was going to come 3 turns later anyway.
I mean, versus a Tia, though, like the main reason the game was high economy is because it's Centurion. And so if your opponent gets a Tia up when you can't Centurion, then normally you'd expect yourself to die. But I mean, clearly I'm missing something there because
True. Yeah, I
the
didn't
game is
quite pay
going
enough
quite well
attention
for
to
him.
say like exactly how Sven defended so easily. I mean, I think mostly he just like bought a lot of funny looking rhinos and so on. I mean, right now he's only got like it looks like he soaked on 4 rhinos if I look at supply.
Yeah, I mean,
But it worked.
I did like Msven's opening. Like by ignoring the conduit, he did get a more efficient start. Um, Now he's going for the Tia, and this will probably finish the game.
Oh yeah, a Tia here is really brutal. That's a good finisher from Sven.
Yeah, I wish I could be the expert commentator and be like, I know exactly why Msven won this game, but I'm not actually quite sure. I'd be interested to ask Msven after the game. Um, it probably has something to do with the wild drone. Like maybe wild drone is kind of a good justification for high economy in itself. Like Apooche did build up a lot of defense tempo, and Msven was able to just keep going after the wild drones with this little bit of attack.
I mean,
And keep
okay, so
defending.
Sven did have 2 Blast Forges already when the Tia came. And the Tia only came with like 4 permanent damage behind it, I think. So really, like, okay, so Sven can build two walls and 2 rhinos every turn for 3 turns if he wants to do. But yeah, I agree with you that I'm like used to the Tia winning there. I feel like what happened is that usually if the person built a Tia behind like with like 4 damage behind it, then they did it like a little bit faster. And so the other player didn't already have like a 20 gold economy where they could build like 2 walls and 2 rhinos per turn. They had like a 15 gold or 17 gold economy and maybe only 1 blast forge. But here, Apooche also kind of went for the high econ stuff first and then got the Tia, so it was delayed a little bit.
Yeah, it could be something like that where like it just didn't have the finishing power.
Okay, what's going on here?
Well, there's Windsor. There's also good aggressive red setup with like Grimbotch and then some red sinks. Venge Cannon isn't really a unit.
Fission Turret, I think, makes Venge Cannon a unit. Like Fission Turret is kind of a nice unit, and Venge Cannon made it better.
Like you could use it as a green sync. Like you could buy one potentially as a green sync, but that would be
Right.
very much later in the game. So like in the set reading phase, you don't really worry about it because it's so far off that it doesn't have any impact. And like Aegis is also a green sync and
Well,
a
Apooche
better
thinks
one.
Fission Turret's such a good unit that he's doing this player 1 Fission Turret opening, which I like. If I like Apooche's opening in the circumstance where player 1 really wants the green, and this is like a way to get into green in a nice way. But I don't think that player 1 wants the green that much, so I wouldn't have played like Apooche. What do you think of this?
Yeah, I'm quite surprised. I would have thought more around the like red. Um, I can see why he doesn't want to go Elliot Animus. Fission Turret, he could be thinking some kind of Fission Turret Thermite Core play. Thermite Core isn't as important though, given that it's like it's just a
Oh,
2 absorb set. There's no absorber. Um, it is best of 7. Uh, so yeah, I'm not quite sure what he's thinking with this Fission turret setup. I feel quite confident he is not going to go for Avenge all in, just because Aegis kind of neutralizes Venge Cannon pretty hard.
agreed.
Um,
Sven is
Msven's
trying to
thinking
figure
of
out what to do here because I mean, yeah, I would probably play this Fastimus too.
yeah, like red is just really strong with Grimbotch, and you're not worried about like getting caught by Avenge all in because you have the red sinks. Um, so I like the Animus. It puts a Pooch in kind of a tough spot. Like if he goes for the drones and vision, like Sven can go like Rhino Grimbotch and really um, mess up Sven's day.
Oh, okay, so it's probably Thermite Core plan like you predicted.
Yeah, it looks like that's what he's going for.
Although it could be that Sven could annoy him by, double Grimbotch would be the super annoyance plan to try to make him choose between Wall and Thermite Core.
Yeah, I think double Grimbotch would be a mistake. I think that's he walls it, and then like
I agree.
Grimbotches are weaker in the early game because they time out. So I like the Smorkus Blastforge better. He could also have tried like Rhino Grimbotch or something. Like the Blastforge isn't necessary. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just another option. As for what Msven went for, it looks like an interesting Thermite Core setup.
So do you think that Sven might build Thermite Cores in this position? Like at least say 1 or 2 Thermite Cores, or would you avoid that?
I think it depends on what Apooche does. So like when Apooche goes for the second damage without Thermite Core, that makes Wall like very high value.
Sure.
So I would
But would
expect
you like set up in a way that maybe involves like another damage and then like Thermite Core plus some Tarsiers to get like a turn of value out of the Thermite Core?
um possibly. Like I said, it kind of depends on how things play out. So Msven is really
Oh wow.
really looking at the Thermite Core hard though.
Interesting. I would have done like you said and just built a wall without thinking.
Yeah. Uh, Huh. So my instinct here is that this is like failing to adapt a bit to what Apooche did. I think the thermite core plan was good if Apooche didn't make the fission turret, but given that he did, I think you should build the wall. But I mean, Msven is good enough that I'm not going to say that's for sure what's happening. It's also possible it's just a different evaluation.
One thing I really love about Prismata is that like you and Sven can have played for years and be these real strong players, and still like every other turn, it's like, wow, I certainly wouldn't have done that if I were Sven. I feel the same. Like always, there managed to be a lot of different styles in Prismata and a lot of different choices, even though sometimes when I play I feel like, oh, there's only one thing to do, I'm just going to do it and see what happens. But in actuality, if I hand that game to someone else, they're going to tell me they would do some different thing and I'll be like, what different thing? Oh,
Yeah, I definitely that's my favorite part of Prismata. I'd say it's just the variety of strategies. Like we see, like every game now they've had different non-symmetrical strategies. Not that I mind like the symmetric games, but the point is there's so many that like even in the same set you can get people going for different strategies, and then also every set calls for a different strategy. Um, and It's really great. Like that happened organically. Like it's not like it happens organically out of the units that are in the set. It's not like forced. So it's a really cool aspect. So uh, Msven gets his thermite core. He's going to get a second one. Um, now, like now that Apooche has gotten the thermite core, he obviously doesn't need a wall for absorb. He's happy to just have the engineer and perforator. Um,
so from
so
first principles, it looks like Sven said, I see like Grimbotch and Smorkus, they're strong, efficient red units. And Apooche said, I see like Drake and Fission Turret, they're strong, efficient green and blue units. And we're going to see which is stronger and efficienter.
um, a little bit. I think that like it's also might have to do with player positions as well. In that like Fastimus is certainly like in a happy medium spot compared to like player one who has to choose between the Elliot Animus, which is 2 drones, and then on turn 2 you just throw in an Animus with nothing else, or the natural Animus.
That's
Uh,
true. It would be a little harder for player one to comfortably play the red plan, but I think uh, player two could have played the green blue plan half a turn slower
oh,
and with a
definitely.
slightly higher econ, and I feel like that would have been 100% reasonable.
Yeah. I think one thing Sven has to watch out for is like if Apooche just goes grenade mech here, he would go up to 8
Mhm.
pressure total. Uh, Looks like that's what Apooche is going for. Sven can defend this. It just might be a little bit, a little bit
Yeah,
ugly.
I mean, this is actually a gambit, which is kind of cool because I agree it's a little awkward to defend if you take the gambit. I don't know.
Yeah, I think. I mean, the gambit was fine because Sven has the thermite course, so there's no real big difference.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, so it's not really even a gambit. Like
Okay.
when you aren't getting absorbed anyway, there's no real reason to defend for one more than your opponent's pressure. Here, Apooche is going to be dealing a minimum of 1 damage. He can't deny absorb fully, so that's why Sven is like over defending by 1. It's to get that 1 absorb. Let's see.
Too bad Apooche didn't manage to. If Apooche had one more gold, he could have played Drake. It's always nice to have a Drake.
Yeah, wouldn't have been as important here because we see the grenade mech doing 1 damage into the wall, and so a Drake like it attacks for 1 more, but that would just be doing 2 damage into a wall. But with a thermite core, then the Drake would take off a bit more.
True. Yeah, I guess on this turn, maybe Grenade Mech was fine to have right now. I was just thinking in general, Drake is a really strong unit to have the first one of. But look, maybe he's going to be able to buy a Drake next turn. Probably not. I feel like Sven should be able to put enough pressure on that it's very difficult.
Yeah, so it looks like those Venge Cannons you're talking about will be coming out. In fact, it looks
Ooh,
like Pooch is going to end up
calculating
going for like
the big painful line here.
yeah. So one of Msven's threat is fake because he only has 1 Animus. Or two. Sorry, two of Msven's threat is fake because he only has one animus and he has two Smorkases and a Perforator. And so this actually wasn't a gambit for like getting breached.
Okay, my intuition is that Sven is going to get squished here because, like, next turn, Met clicks again, we're going to get another Venge Cannon, and we're going to click the existing Venge Cannon, and if everything goes right, like, that's a lot of damage.
Definitely could happen.
Apooche didn't gambit for exact this time, did he? I don't think he should because he needs those engineers for the fission turret.
He did gambit for exact. I'm kind of surprised Msven chose not to take it. I would also like to see a conduit from Msven because this is so clearly going in a like playing against Venge Cannon direction. It's really nice to have that conduit for Force Field or Aegis.
Yeah. If Apooche does this, he would be okay. Maybe he's not going totally nuts with it because he would be on pretty low permanent damage after sacking his economy and all this. It would really be a do or die kind of thing. Like either Sven is dead or he isn't.
Yeah, I think like Apooche will go for the all in eventually. Would be my guess. But
I'm shocked that Apooche didn't click that Venge Cannon right there.
Yeah, it looks like I think that's because he's saving up for the double Venge to go fully breach proof.
Yeah, I guess
like
that must be.
Per turn, which means that with 2 absorb, Msven would only need like wall NG. So I think that at the end of the day, what's going to happen is Apooche won't be able to spend all his tech, except by going Venges, and then when he goes Venges, Msven will be defended. Like he'll be able to defend it and win. So I think that Msven's going to pull it out here. That's my prediction. So he's considering going in just to turn off the fission click. Here he's correct not to because he would get absorb. I think last turn he should have done it, if I'm remembering it correctly. So Msven offered a gambit. It's not bad because he wasn't getting absorb anyway, so the only thing that happens this way is that he loses a drone. Yeah, I would still like to have seen a conduit, but I wonder why he's going for engineers over conduit. Actually, it might be that he's worried about like. I guess he wouldn't get up to an Aegis, like that would never really happen, and so he'd just end up using the conduit for force fields. And there's not like a huge difference between using engineers and force fields for soak. So I guess
I would have gotten
why,
the engineers probably. I don't know if it's better.
Yeah. So I wonder what Apooche will do with his last 4 gold. Definitely a pretty awkward number. Fission turret obviously isn't so good because it just gets breached the next turn. So either conduit or double engineer. Neither's really that happy.
Yeah, he has to pull the trigger on the Vengeance this turn, huh?
With that said, like 4 gold or not, Msven definitely has a difficult defense next turn. Like I might have underestimated just how much.
Really? Next turn, Sven just presses wall. Oh, can't play wall Rhino, huh? That's a shame.
Yeah. So he's gonna have to hold drones.
Sure, fission turret then. I think I agree with that.
Yeah, I guess the fission turret like straight up kills the drone, and then
like
later
fission
on
turret is at least as good as 2 engineers, right? Because like it's like doing a damage and absorbing a damage later from Sven. So
yeah. So yeah, it looks like this definitely looks like Apooche is getting there actually with his like fission into Vengel in play.
Yeah, it was a little too much. If Sven had 1 more gold this turn, I feel like Sven could win this game.
I'm actually not even sure if the gold would make the difference because like he's facing 7
Oh
damage.
yeah, I forgot he added on that one fission turret. Yeah, I was thinking if he could play wall Rhino, but still he couldn't play wall Rhino, so he would need even more.
Yeah.
Rough.
Yeah, I mean, I said that Venge wouldn't really come out this way, but it did end up coming out that way because of the Thermite core. Like because by playing a standard value game, they ended up in this situation where Msven was on blue-red.
I guess it's not 100% over, but it's pretty over because he's going to lose a drone per turn until he can't play wall anymore. And Apooche's going to click a Venge Cannon next turn, and that's just going to be it. And
Yeah,
the
I think
damage
so.
isn't coming in fast enough to change anything about that. Well, he could kill the conduit this turn, then the click would never come, but the matter stands that he can't defend 6 per turn.
Yeah. Oh, and nice exploit. All right, nicely done by Pooch. So it's 2-1 for Pooch, I believe. After the fourth game, there will be a 5-minute intermission.
So far, these games have all been like pretty cool games.
Yeah. Don't worry, we'll let you guys know when it's a boring one. We'll just say like this set sucks.
Yeah, we'll just like go take a break.
We'll just
You
like
got
leave
you
the
guys can
cast and
just
like
sort
say
of like say stuff in Twitch chat if you want to take up the commentary. Oh, the new Sentinel is here. I haven't seen any games with this new Sentinel yet.
I like the new Sentinel. I mean, it's just like kind of like the strength level it should have been. You know, it's not great, but it's decent.
Okay, what's going on here? You know, just looking at this set, I feel like this is the kind of set that a lot of people would complain that player 2 natural conduit is like too easy to do.
So there's no absorber, which is why, like you said, it's a natural conduit kind of set. There's no reason to go third engineer really. There's Valkyrion, which probably won't happen. Like Arms Race, Valkyrion, Sentinel are all like nice units, but they kind of need a little bit more to come out. So it seems like more of just a standard blue green game. Um,
What do you think
so
of Apooche playing? There's this drone conduit blast forge that you can play this next turn into first borehole as player 1, and I like to use that sometimes in these sort of borehole followed by green blue sets for player 1. Do you like that opening?
no, you know the big problem is that you go borehole drone and float 2 gold on the next turn usually,
Mm-hmm.
and then on top of that, it's just a bit too fast. I actually like the slow conduit that Apooch is doing. It looks ugly, but it's the right speed for blue green sets. Um,
And do you think that you would have opened with conduit for him? Because sometimes, since Oxide Mixer is here, I might not feel bad either about opening Drone Blast Forge and getting Oxide and then conduit.
Oxide is like quite bad that early because the thing about it is that like obviously what it gives is pixies, but your opponent has a bit of defense lying around early on. So like in high level games, you just you can't afford to be doing nothing for that long and have that be a good purchase. Whereas instead the conduit, if you want Gauss Fab, it points you towards that. If you want Plasma Fire, it points you towards that. Um,
Okay, so
so
it's starting to look like it's probably going to be for if I were playing this, it would definitely be a green blue mirror, and there's no way I would get red. Do you think there's a chance that either of these players are going to wind up getting red?
Apooch is definitely considering it. Um, I would say he should stick to blue green, but like that's a uphill battle against anyone, but especially against Msven. Um, so neither player is going to go for Gauss Fab just because like a lot of the time, even though it's a really powerful unit in these kinds of like low econ games, you just can't get it out without getting like smorked.
You would get like
And
plasmified.
yeah, or even like just a borehole can really hurt it. So
Yeah.
Gauss Fab just a bit too clunky to come out. So Msven's going for like borehole into plasma fire, which is really strong. I'm not sure how Pooch plans to deal with that.
Me
I
neither.
would
I
guess
mean,
he starts off with like wall Tarsier, and then goes Valk.
yeah,
I don't know.
but then next turn plasma fire comes, and then you build like wall Tarsier again? Question mark.
He probably goes like Valkyrie on Force Field versus the Plasma Fire,
Yeah.
but it's
Okay,
kind of
that's
rough.
legal.
He
Fairly
might just
legal.
go raw. He might actually just go Valkyrie on here, like because if he does, Msven would have to hold a drone if he wanted to get out Plasma Fire.
But if Valkyrian comes here, then you get exploited next turn if opponent just buys borehole. Oh, but then opponent needs to defend.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. Rhino arms race. I don't think that'll do it.
Wow, if Apooche can show me how this geez. Yeah, if Apooche can show me that this red was correct, I'll be really impressed.
Yeah. Emily asked like if oxide is bad early, when is it good? Basically, one turn after, like you buy a blast fort, you get whatever you wanted to, and then on your next turn you don't know what to do with your blue, and you buy an oxide mixer. So it's basically when you really don't want blue. So like you don't go out of your way to get it, you just kind of use it as a blue sink, specifically in the early game pre-absorb, because it gets worse post-absorb because you'd rather be buying an attacker. And then the other thing that makes it good is when it can exploit granularity. But with borehole, like borehole's better at doing that. So oxide mixer, I mean, it's definitely a weak unit, but you can, if it like messes with your opponent's granularity, it's strong. And but that's only a reason to get one oxide mixer. Like if you get three oxide mixers, you're not punishing them any harder than if you had one. So like basically you get one sometimes, and usually you don't go out of your way for it. You just get it when it fits, which makes sense for a 3 and a blue unit. Like it'd be weird if a unit that cost 3 and a blue was like distorting games in a big way. Although I do think it could use like a small buff. But so anyway, Apooche went for the arms race, and Msven's going for plasma fire. I would guess he's just deciding whether to get an engineer or not. Apooche is probably going like wall, force field, uh, sentinel, if I had to guess, which would put him at like 5 damage next turn. And Msven wouldn't need an extra defense versus that, so I would guess he won't get the engineer. And yeah, he clicks the pixie. No reason not to.
I thought for a little while he might not click the pixie, and I was like, why? Why isn't he clicking it?
So he's looking to hold the steel splitter. Makes sense since like swinging with a steel splitter isn't as important as it usually is because like he isn't pressuring his opponent next turn anyway. That said, it still hurts to hold steel splitter compared to just buying a force field. I kind of think you should just swing with a splitter anyway because it's like buying a force field kind of puts you down a gold next turn, and it also means he has to float a gold and a green in order to like not get the or it
Oh,
means he has to
this is
float a gold.
interesting to me. So if you're Sven, do you click Plasma Fire to do 3 damage and to absorb only on 2 instead of on Plasma Fire? I think I might hold the Plasma Fire.
That's a good question. I think like the thing is that holding one of the questions here is health tempo. Like even though it's good to get the 3 absorb out of plasma fire, it's still nice to get like one of the big
Oh,
reasons to hold plasma fire is when it also helps you out on defense, but he's
because
actually already good for defense.
and
So I'd say it's
also
okay to click it.
tempo the other way around because Apooche has this animus and there's nothing cheap to spend red on. So Apooche has to like spend a lot of money on attacky stuff per turn. So putting pressure on Apooche seems very effective in this position.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like the more pressure you put on a player with an animus, at least when they don't have a good tech, like here, the more you force them to waste tech resources, which which just makes you more efficient than them and tends to lead to you winning. So that's probably another factor. Apooche still wanting to hold the steel splitter again because he really wants to spend the red. I think here he probably. I mean, it actually makes more sense to hold the steel splitter here than it did last turn. Because you can go force field sentinel.
I feel like
But
holding the steel splitter here is a very bad sign for Apooche. Like it could be correct to do, sure, but it's like not. This isn't how you wanted the game to be, to get the steel splitter with arms race and then hold it every turn because you needed the defense tempo to buy sentinel.
yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. Like, it's just, I mean, with sentinels, you can kind of hope that your opponent, like, sacrifices too many of their drones and with their plasma fire and kind of ends up overtech because of that and losing because of that. But like he only has one plasma fire. It's not like he's on two, and so he's not going to be losing steam that quickly.
So do you
Now,
think he could very easily be saving up for two? Like, for example, he could buy like wall instead of patroller one turn and then plasma fire next turn, or like not buy the Gauss cannon and get like the drone engineer or something instead and then get it next turn. Would you be staying on one in his position, or would you go for two? I kind of really like this one and other stuff.
I think he probably went for the Gauss cannon because it made Apooche's defense harder. If I had to guess, I think by default you do like with a Gauss cannon, you do prefer to instead just like get drones or engineers and use that to set up for a more powerful attacker. That's like the usual play. Um, but there definitely are good reasons to like not want two plasma fires. Like basically the only way you lose this is by
I think that's right, because if you
over
just look at the
drone stacking.
positions now, it's looking really good. Sven has 5 permanent damage. Apooche has 3 permanent damage plus like these sentinels that are kind of half spent. Sven has then a plasma fire, which is like a good unit. And Apooche has an animus, which is maybe a good unit, question mark. So I feel like Sven clearly has an advantage.
I think so, yeah. Um, so the Sentinels are coming back, which is kind of a mixed blessing. Like it'll help him make other purchases, but it means that he is losing a damage each time that happens. Damage and engineer per turn.
This exploit was very predictable. Would you have held a drone if you were Sven?
Um, I think so. The reason he didn't hold the drone, I think one reason is because he figures he's already overteched on green. Like the only difference between a force field and holding a drone is one green, and he isn't really worried about running out of green. And then the other thing is there's the possibility that like Apooche could have absorbed on his Rhino and use that to hit for 6. So if he was holding a drone, like if he had the force field there, that's fine. But if he was holding the drone, then he would end up having to lose a
I
patrol.
was actually thinking he could force field and hold a drone. So then against the attack Apooche did, he would lose force field drone, absorb on wall instead of just losing force field wall. And against
I
the
feel
other
like that'd be
attack,
too
like,
much.
oh yeah, okay.
I don't know. That's like holding a drone to get 2 health the next turn, which is like okay. But I think that when you're overtech on green, it's better to just keep the drone in the gold. Like green is ridiculously efficient in a set, or like drones are ridiculously efficient in a set where you're overtech on green, so there's force field, and then there's also Aegis.
Yeah, I guess if to the extent that the green is infinite, then like always your drone can become 2 health next turn very easily.
Yeah.
So Steel Splitter is staying home again, as it will. Sven is rebuying this drone. Makes sense because there's like almost no pressure.
Yeah, like
Although,
Apooche isn't really doing damage. Although
yeah, he doesn't have to worry about granularity. And since I feel like probably green is infinite now for Sven on 2 conduits, so probably drone is almost strictly better than engineer in most situations at this point.
yeah, like I think at this point it would actually make sense to go like drone engineer or something.
Yeah,
I
like
think
at
he
this
should actually
point,
defend here. Like I don't think he wants to let Apooche swing for 7. That does kill a patroller. With that
well,
said, I
maybe he
don't
wants
actually know
to
how.
threaten to absorb on patrol because Steel Splitter wants to hold, right? And if Steel
Yeah,
Splitter holds, then Sven can still threaten to absorb on patroller, so it's one more threat.
yeah, and I mean it's true. There's no real way that Apooche is going to be able to swing in here. So looks like Msven is right to just go patroller. Although, like in that case, I think whatever he did would have won. So
Looks like
nicely
it's
played
the
by
end of the
Msven.
lineup here.
So it's 2-2, right? And
That's a good way to go into the break.
yeah, cool games.
Okay. Yeah. Apparently, we're going to break for 5 minutes, and then we'll be back, and there'll be some more games, and we're going to figure out who is the king. So stick around.
Yeah, see you guys in like 5 minutes. And we're back. All right, so Msven and Apooche will be starting the next game soon.
I learned there's going to be a winner's interview at least afterwards too, which makes me happy.
Yeah, that'll be good. I look forward to asking about that Hellhound Tia Wild Drone Centurion set where like Apooche got the. I mean, it wasn't really a surprise Tia, but it surprised us. Like he just got the conduit and then got the Tia, but
Yeah, that was probably the trickiest decision-making set that I could identify so far. Okay, what's going on here?
and yeah, a lot of people think that Celerity is like stepped back from the Prismata scene, but he's actually been hard at work writing the scripts for all the tournaments. So like, in addition to his Slay the Spire and other streaming, so he's been going at it hard. Um, so in this set, we've got Tatsu plus big absorbers and defenders. So it's just going to be a Tatsu set.
Yeah, the way I was taught to handle these sets is like you try to put off committing until as long as you can, because if you commit to like going big and getting defense, then Tatsu is going to roll you, and if you commit to like Tatsu's too early, then you're going to get like rolled by like, I don't know, Xeno Guardian or like little red stuff or something. So you kind of want to drone up and then pick like the perfect moment to jump in with your tech.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
And
actually
like,
surprised Sven didn't get a third Engie.
no, I think that's like the thing is that so that's the rock paper scissors is like the default, or so that's what happens when you have Tatsu like Tatsu plus big economy. But then the timing varies depending on like how much support there is for Tatsu. So here the Smorkas and Blood Pact, which means that like raw Tatsu or fast Tatsu is like stronger, which is why he doesn't want to go high economy because you can go for Tatsu faster. Like Apooche here is even going for like Fastimus.
Okay,
I
so
think that's pretty
what bothers me about Apooche's play is that I feel I can play Xeno Guardian against it, and it's good if against his red, and it's good even if he goes for a Tatsu quickly.
Xeno isn't really good against Tatsu. Vigilant
Oh,
defenders are like not good versus constant freeze or like guaranteed freeze. They're good against one off, maybe it will freeze, maybe it won't type things. Um,
okay. I might have misjudged that if I were playing.
yeah, and so I think that's why Pooch is going for this like fast animus. Like with Smorkas Drone, he can go into Tatsu anytime he wants, and it's just tough for him, Sven. Um, I would say this is like if this set is player favored, it's because of Apooche's line right here. Um, it's definitely put Msven in a tough spot. Like with the way Msven is now, given that Apooche isn't really currently poised to go for anything very defensive, Msven just needs to like defend it and then smork him. Is basically his plan. But like the thing is that Apooche is should be able to hold that, I would say. So Msven goes for the Animus, like he's trying to put the pressure on Apooche. One thing that's nice about so Msven chose Wall over Infusion Grid, and I think that makes sense because like what Apooche really wants to do is click Smorkas, because if he clicks the Smorkas, then
Hmm.
he has an easy time setting up defense and like pressuring and messing with Msven.
Ooh, the
So
second
because he built the
Smorkas looks
wall,
stupid.
yeah,
I mean, I'm sure it's a fine play. It's just going to run right into the wall.
yeah, I'm kind of surprised by Apooche's choice of Smorkas Animus. I guess he kind of felt obligated to, or else like Msven would doom to wall him or something. But like
It's interesting.
it's,
So, is he going to buy a Tatsu here? I can't tell.
I don't think so. Like he needs to defend. Um, yeah,
Oh
so
yeah.
Apooche is now getting the Blast
Hmm.
Forge. So I think, huh? I'm not sure. So because Apooche did go for the Smorkas Animus, he's now constantly threatening Tatsu. That's the big advantage of that play.
I guess Sven really wanted the splitter over infusion, maybe to put Apooche off Tatsu. I would have thought infusion first, but maybe it's necessary for this.
That's a pretty dubious Tatsu. I think instead he should go for the clicks and Blast Forge. Looks like that's what he's going for.
So if he buys this Tatsu and Sven does like something reasonable, like click stuff, and okay, he's probably not doing. I was just going to try to compute how he was going to defend next turn because I agree, dubious.
Yeah, and Sven has handled this quite nicely. The wall in particular was a pretty good choice, and it may have kind of put Apooche in a tough spot and induced misplay. But this is definitely not over, like by any means. Like Apooche still is constantly threatening Tatsu, and Msven is just now threatening Tatsu.
Yeah, if I were Apooche, I would be feeling like, hey, wait a second. My plan was not to run into his wall, not freezing it for multiple turns.
Yeah. So now Msven is getting Infusion Grid, which is gonna like that's a nice choice because Apooche can't Tatsu next turn. He needs to defend, and so he could also Doomed Wall. I kind of like Doomed Wall over Infusion Grid, like just swing in with the Steel Splitter. Um, the Doomed Wall would probably end up getting exploited though, which is why I'm staying away from it. Like, there's no way it would die while getting defensive value with its
Wow.
lifespan.
I I really wish that I could click that steel splitter. I'm shocked that Sven would not click it and then not hold the drone.
Yeah, I do like click splitter hold engineer, but it's possible that Msven's calculating something that we're not.
Isn't it very important for him to be threatening, like threatening 3 on an empty board is like a lot better than threatening 3 into an engineer.
Well, I think the main purpose of his pressure right now is to put Apooche off Tatsu. And so I guess what he's thinking is that as long as it's doing that, which I think it still does more or less.
That makes sense. Like either way, he wants the wall.
But I mean, he could get Tatsu if he doesn't click the splitter. So I think you're right. And yeah, I do think it's better to go in with splitter. Like, it is kind of like, what do you want, a gold or a damage? And the damage is definitely better. It's not quite that simple, but it's like, that is the reason that I think.
I mean, I feel like that damage in particular was like a really good damage.
Yeah. So Apooche is considering Polywall. I think I like that choice. The idea is to use the Polywall to set up for Tatsu, I think.
I forgot that unit existed.
There's a lot of blue stuff in this set. It would be an entirely different set without Tatsu. Like, maybe kind
Wow,
of
that
stating the
Polywall's
obvious there,
intense.
but
Okay, so now even if Sven gets Tatsu this next turn, it's 0 pressure. So Apooche can still is like guaranteed to buy his own Tatsu this way.
oh, that's a good point. Like, if he wants to kill the Polywall, he really needs like Smorka's Splitter or something.
Wow, that Polywall is really classy in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a really cool Polywall.
Oh, and he can't go Tatsu 2 turns in a row either.
You're right. So yeah, Msven's gonna have to go for the kill on the Polywall. So what Msven's looking at now is like he locks this in. Apooche buys like Tatsu plus Engineers or something, and then he kills Polywall, and he's facing 7. No, more like 7 damage plus the freeze. He probably clicks Infusion Grid next turn.
Yeah, that click is a really nice resource anytime you're not spending the red on Tatsu.
Yeah, I don't think he gets to get Tatsu next turn, and I think because of that, he'll probably want the Infusion Grid click.
Okay, so this Tatsu is like pretty good, but on the other hand, Sven doesn't. The Steel Splitter gets to stay home any. Oh, the Steel Splitter doesn't want to stay home because he wants to click everything, huh? Okay,
It can't stay home because
he wants to
I
kill the
know it said
polywall.
7, but he only has 2 animuses, so he can deal a maximum of 6 damage.
Um,
Oh, and yeah, pointing out he can't click grid because he has to click both.
ooh, this counter polywall is not as impressive as the top polywall.
True. So how will Apooche defend this? Um,
Well, real damage is 6, so he could play, for example, Doomed Wall, hold drone, oh, he doesn't want to hold the Rhino, so the Rhino, yeah, that's a little pain in the ass. Blood Pact is always here, so he can weasel out like Blood Pact, Doomed Wall if he really wants.
I think he still does want to avoid Doomed Wall because, like, say he does Doomed Wall Blood Pact, he's giving Msven 2 defense in the form of a Grimbotch, and so Msven will probably be able to get out a Tatsu at some point.
Yeah, granted, and then that Doomed Wall is just going to be a liability.
So I think he's going to go Polywall again. Would be my guess. Like, just if he built a Polywall per turn, like it does get killed for exact, but it's it's forcing Msven to go in with everything, which means no Tatsu and no Splitter hold. Although the Splitter hold isn't as important, but
Yeah, I feel like,
it's very
but soon,
forcing.
yeah, it's tough game, tough game.
Yeah,
I
so
feel
it's
like
pretty reasonable.
Polywall per turn isn't going to last very long as a technique because Sven is going to be building up defense and can play like can Sven play like a wall or like infusion grid. It's not so easy. I want to get a second infusion grid if I can, but probably it's hard. And I want to get more animuses with the rest of my gold so
I
that I
think the
can
infusion
start.
grid is a bit of a pipe dream because, like, if you get
Yeah,
a
I
second
feel
infusion
that.
grid, they're getting a second Tatsu most likely.
So maybe like
So
wall, click infusion grid. Uh, Infusion grid, does it need to click? No, it doesn't
there's
necessarily need to click.
this is really tough for Msven. I think he might like he can do wall, hold, double drone, which is just
He
very.
could always buy polywall.
He is actually over defending by 1 here. I think yes. Yes, because Apooch has 1 fake threat.
I'm a little surprised he's not buying polywall in this situation. I guess he really wants that wall absorb, huh?
Well, if he just buys Polywall, then Apooch just repeats his last turn where he goes like Polywall Smorkus.
True. That's a bad sign.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess leveraging his absorb is the only way he can say that he has any kind of advantage.
Yeah. Um, so I think what's most likely going to happen is that Ensfen locks in this turn, and then Pooch goes like Polywall Smorkus again or something, and then
He's
actually Pooch
conspicuously
might defend this
declining to
turn.
buy an engineer. He must aspire to Tatsu or have some other specific plan.
Yeah, I think he's hoping for a Tatsu, but he's probably hoping for like Cold Splitter Tatsu. Uh,
Possible. But is Tatsu. Boy, I don't know. This game is hard to figure out.
yeah, definitely a lot easier to commentate than to play.
Maybe. I mean, when I'm playing, then I feel like somehow I'm more dialed into all of the calculations and I'm like doing it at my own pace. Whereas when I'm watching these guys, it's like by the time I sorted out what I think of something, they've like clicked something else and I'm like, oh dear.
Yeah, so Apooch went for the second Tatsu and like offered. He really didn't defend very much. Like he had to hold 3 drones, so it's a very aggressive Tatsu.
That's incredibly dramatic. Okay.
So and Msven can defend it,
So right now this is Gambit for 1, which is fine.
and it's kind of a tough spot because Apooch, he can't polywall anymore.
That's really bad.
I mean, it's still a strong position for Apooch though. Like, I think he just goes like wall. Huh.
I don't know, because now Sven's the one with the polywall-per-turn inevitability feeling. Like, Sven can do stuff like polywall. Well, I don't know how
I
well
don't
it
think he
defends.
can. I don't think that polywall defends next turn. The reason it defended this turn
What if
was
he holds
because like
splitter?
yeah, but then you're losing a permanent attacker kind of. So I think that Apooche has still got this.
Yeah, but if you hold splitter and do the polywall, then you're like actually absorbing too. I guess splitter will. Oh, he blood pacted. I think I like Sven. We'll see.
Huh.
But he should hold splitter, right?
I mean,
Because Apooche is doing higher than 6 anyway, so it's actually absorbing.
if he holds, yeah, he does manage to absorb if he holds splitter. Whereas this way he doesn't absorb.
It is really good to kill 1 out of 9 drones.
So the net result was that he yeah, I think that attacking with the splitter was arguably a mistake because he swung it to deal 1 damage. But like you said, killing every drone is really important. So that would be the argument in favor of swinging. So he's dealing for 5, killing a wall. Gets a bit of an exploit there.
Okay, but Apooche is like officially stabilized now because Apooche could play, for example, Doomed Wall per turn and be covering all of the damage. I mean, that's kind of stupid because granularity, I guess, but in principle, Apooche is stabilized.
Huh. This is really close, actually. 10. So Apooche is going for the wall kills here because he wants to deny absorb by freezing all the walls. So that's why he's not freezing Msven's walls. That wouldn't breach.
That's a cute tactic.
Remember that Msven has 1 fake threat, as does Apooche. This is therefore like a gambit for a breach for exact, which I think is okay to offer because he's getting so little absorb anyway. But he decides to not gambit it.
Like
probably
for, Sven can just as well attack for 4. Oh, well, okay, he held a drone to cover against the attack for 4, or maybe against the breach for exact, who knows?
Yeah. Can't hold the Grimbotron defense because the Tatsu would freeze it and it would just die. And Msven decides to throw in the towel. That was... I definitely wouldn't say it was like an auto win for player 2. I think people throw around auto win too much, but it was definitely the easier set for Apooche because of Fastimus being really strong with like Smorkus and Tatsu.
It got pretty spicy.
Yeah, it was. I liked how Msven played it, and I think
I was really optimistic when Sven got that wall absorb and denied the fast Tatsu, but then that poly wall was so strong and opened up so much space for Apooche to do whatever he wanted.
Yeah, which I guess was what Apooche was thinking when he got the like second Smorkus and Animus. It's just like if he can get any turn where has a free hand, then he gets the Tatsu, and then he got the turn.
Wow, this set looks complicated.
I like this set. A lot of legendaries. There's Centurion, which is going to be the absorber, I think. I would guess that it's a Zamora set.
Yeah, because, first question is, does Zamora come? And if so, how fast?
Yeah, if you do get Zamora, you get it slower as player 2, like
Apooche is Sven disagrees.
No. There's only one player 1
Zamora line. I understand.
This is the only player 1 Zamora line and then player 2 is the one who chooses between faster or slower. And Apooche is going for the slower Zamora. You always get Zamora very early. I know you know this mquander, but I'm just kind of throwing it out there because it has such a long build time and it's such a long-term unit. So it's just like how crazy fast you get it. Not really crazy fast, but it's like an economic unit. So you build it in the economic phase of the game, which is what they're both doing.
Okay, so next question: do you get Like, what do you go for immediately after? Do you go for Centurion, like set up to get ready to get Centurion with big economy? Do you get Endotherm Kit to line up with Zamora? Do you try to get Zatron? I'm not sure the answer to these questions.
So Msven is getting the endotherm kit to line up with Zamora. Apooche is looking at Urban Sentry, which is a good, like, it's an absorber and it's a good first attacker uh, because it's vigilant. So I would expect Apooche to also. Huh. I'm actually not sure if Apooche will go endotherm kit. So the reason to go it is that Centurion will be the absorber, and Centurion is both. Like when Centurion is around, you can't even allow a breach for exact because losing Centurion is so disastrous. So that's why you want to go endotherm kit. You can also like your opponent can also freeze the Centurion to deny absorb. The reason against going endotherm kit is because you can use urban sentries to like vigilantly play around the threat, and so it looks like Apooche is deciding to not go for any urban sentries of his own, and instead his plan will be, assuming that Msven goes for endotherm kit, his plan will be to like play around the endotherm kit with a bunch of urban sentries. Um, yeah.
I like
So
Sven's spot. I mean, to me, I feel like, okay, so you can play around it with urban sentries, but urban sentries, when they die, you're like not that pleased with yourself. And I feel like when the build time of Endotherm Kit isn't so much of a factor because like already your attack was like scheduled to be in 4 turns, it's just a really sick unit for the price. Like
um,
16 threat is a lot. And even if you wind up like killing 4 urban sentries or something when you execute on that threat, that's still like a pretty good payoff.
uh, no, trading 4 frostbites for 4 urban sentries is not really a good payoff, I would say. The thing is, say you sacrifice a frostbite in order to kill an urban sentry, um, then what happens is your opponent basically it's like your opponent just had an attacker and then they trade in their attacker for 3 health. Except that instead, when you sacrifice the frostbite, they get to trade in their attacker for 3 health, which is already an okay trade, plus a frostbite. So like the frostbite, I would say doesn't. I haven't done the math on urban sentry specifically, um, but I think it's a pretty good. Like you don't really want to sacrifice a frostbite to kill an urban sentry. With that said, uh, the advantage of being against Centurion, Centurion is strong enough that I think both players have to get it.
Let
Is
me
that you
make
can?
another sort of defense of this endotherm idea. I'm going to claim that these urban sentries, up to the point when they get owned by the endotherm kit, they're not going to do much because,
Yeah,
like,
that's a really good point.
protoplasm is coming out. It's going to come out next turn. Like the urban sentries, they're just going to be poking at that. It's not like they're getting value while turn by turn while Apooche is building these up.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then the other thing is that he can freeze the Centurion and kill an Urban Sentry while doing that. So that's another way that he can kind of get around it. Apooch will be going for Zatron. That's another good way to play around Endotherm Kit. Um, but I think you're right that like the fact that Apooch has to make these Urban Sentries, which aren't really doing much, is pretty rough. Weirdly enough, Msven is. I don't know if it's weird, but Msven is definitely not really looking for a Blast Forge yet. Um,
I feel like as long as protoplasm is covering, he doesn't want it. Protoplasm is like the perfect combination with all this Zamora endotherm timing crap.
the protoplasm also won't be doing anything until some more endo comes in, though. Like
Granted,
obviously it absorbs the 2 damage, but it's like
because the
fourth.
sentries are already here covering the threat.
Yeah. So it's kind of a weird thing. By the way,
That
this
is
isn't a
weird.
criticism of their play. Just to be clear, it's like with this much in the set, you have to make choices about what you get and what you don't. And so like there's no way you can get everything in this set. And so obviously if like when Msven's choosing to go for protoplasm and not the blast forges, that's because he's getting the conduits, which will guarantee that he has enough green, hopefully, to power his Zamora. It's really tough to power the Zamora while also getting like the units that you want.
So is it mandatory for Apooche to set up for Zatron this next turn, I think?
Uh, well, Pooch got, you mean Centurion, right? He got the Zatron.
Yeah, sorry, I meant Centurion.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Like the question is, will he even be able to?
I think he should be able to. He's already good on green, and he already has enough urban sentries that it's covering like most of the endotherm threat, and his Zatron is going to be all pumped up. I think it's okay to cover like the endotherm threat and like offer the Zatron at full health, question mark.
I think you're right about that. So yeah, the Zatron will be at 12 health. He'll have some urban sentries around. He should be able to get the Centurion off, but on the other hand, like Frostbite's 16 threat, Zamora's 8 damage, Protoplasm, he can get another Protoplasm.
I'm
So
surprised he's not, but I guess
he'll
he
be over
thinks it's
30
higher
threat.
priority to be getting Tarsier double engineer. Oh, but his protoplasm's still here. What am I saying? I forgot.
So yeah, the Protoplasm would be next turn, and right now he's trying to set up for Centurion, which Centurion's super strong. The only question is whether he can afford it. I guess that's why he got the 2 conduits, the 2 extra conduits last turn. It's so that he can like have enough green that he doesn't have to worry about it for a little bit while he sets up Centurion.
Yeah, it's legal.
Um,
All right, well, both players are doing their thing. I mean, I guess in about a turn and a half, we're going to see what we make of it. I feel like Sven's way is much more how I would play. Like, it feels like it's really working this, like, Zamora endotherm synergy and going ready for the big thing. I really like playing like that, I guess, but maybe Apooche is doing something very reasonable. Oh, wow. Okay, I
Pooch
didn't
is
know
very
he would click
reactive.
Zatron. He's trying to put Sven off Centurion. That's fascinating.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 11. So that would kill that would kill Protoplasm. Um,
Yeah, that's really annoying. It's exactly enough.
yeah,
Huh.
it might be worth it.
But the
Actually,
thing
wait,
is,
does it even?
this is giving up the Zatron defense possibility. So if Sven just says, okay, fine, I'll just get another protoplasm and some walls next turn, and then you can deal with my bajillion threat, Apooche needs to be sure that's not a big problem.
Yeah, so yeah, if he does this, it kills the protoplasm, which hurts a lot. Like losing a 1 health protoplasm is a big deal. So yeah, the Zatron click was correct, I think. And
Yeah, but I'm
Pooch
wondering, like,
is
if Sven
neglecting the
doesn't
Centurion.
buy Centurion, like, if Sven just buys walls and protoplasm, Apooche is giving up the possibility of using Zatron as defense threat defense.
I mean, Zatron actually defends against threat harder when it's at 5 health because that
Hmm.
way, you get to absorb on Urban Sentry, and then Zatron gains its 4 health anyway.
Okay, well, in that case, what Apooche did seems really good.
Yeah, I think it was. And yeah, I do like the decision not to go for Centurion. I think like even though Centurion's super strong, it's you just have to know what you can actually achieve. And
Wow, so
like
Apooche is
with
exactly defended. Apooche didn't set up Zatron. I guess that was the sacrifice. I'm sorry, second time. Didn't set up Centurion. That was the sacrifice in this line of play, because Apooche
yeah,
wishes that Centurion was here, but is not. But still had no difficulty defending, really. I mean, a couple force fields, no big deal.
yeah.
Huh. So now, how does this stand? Right now, uh, with these, if you imagine that the endotherm just used itself up and like killed these urban sentries, which it could do, then they would have an equal number of basically an equal permanent attack behind Zamora. Sven has a substantially bigger economy by a couple drones for some reason, um, and like Apooche does not have Centurion yet, and is not getting Centurion next turn, so maybe I think Sven is better.
I really don't know. It's
And we don't have to use the whole endotherm kit. That was just option values. So it looks like Sven is considering this play where they probably save the frostbites like for later use against Centurion, for example.
yeah. I would have not clicked the frostbite personally. Ooh, so
Uh,
let's see why I did that. So
I think we wanted to kill one urban sentry
yeah,
for
Apooch
convenience.
intentionally avoided. He could have lost 2 urban sentries in order to get uh, in order to absorb on a sentry and then grow his Zatron. But he decided to do the 1 extra damage. It upgrades from killing. Uh, Basically, I think that 1 extra damage kills a drone, which is pretty nice. And then I guess the Urban Sentries play around threat. So pretty interesting choice, and I think that's a good one. Normally you automatically absorb on Sentry. It hadn't even occurred to me to absorb on Zatron really, but I think it was the right choice. So Apooche just barely gets his Zamora still going while adding on a Tantalum, which is nice.
The
Msven's
Tantalum,
considering
never I would
sucking
do
his
this.
bite.
I'm just desperate to get Centurion if I'm Apooche. I want to buy that Animus.
I think Apooche isn't really worrying about Centurion at that point. I think like
Apparently not.
it's not really his concern right now. I think if you go that far out of your way for it, it does kind of you kind of die usually. So Msven working pretty hard to keep his Zamora powered. After this, both of them will like be at around 8 conduits, so they won't have to worry as much. Sacrificing the bites to kill like urban sentries does hurt. Probably correct. And notice that he has to like, even though Apooche will lose 3 urbans, he has to hold an extra drone back because if he didn't, then he would absorb on sentry and like kill his opponent's centurion.
So right now it's kind of looking like Centurion versus a bunch of defense tempo is the difference between the two sides here.
And more permanent attack.
After the half turn, yeah.
Yeah. So pretty close. It's very close. Um, I would say Apooche is ahead, but definitely very close. After this, it could be that like next turn Apooche makes his move for Centurion. One of the reasons he didn't go for Centurion, besides the fact that he's under a ton of pressure, was that Centurion is a bit less good against an endotherm kit for the reasons I talked about before, where like you can't allow a breach, and it can get frozen to not absorb. But now that the endotherm kit is gone, he might go for the Centurion.
I guess when I was comparing the two sides, I kind of forgot to count Apooche's Zatron. So maybe when I think about Zatron too, it feels like Apooche is better. I wonder what red units you should be buying here for Sven. You have a choice between Tarsier, which seems like a little much, Rhino, and ccyrB. I guess Rhino makes sense. ccyrB should come if Centurion is going to come for Apooche, though.
Yeah. He probably goes like, if Apooche does throw down Animus, then maybe Msven would throw down ccyrB.
Sven doesn't think Tarsier is a little much. He says Tarsier is my favorite attacker.
Yeah. I think that's right. Tough decision. And Sven's having a hard time defending. Next turn you'll have to go like wall, rhino, conduit or something. Just the one rhino defense. Oh, not even getting a conduit.
Okay, so Apooche says I'm going to build Centurion. That's bad news for Sven, in my opinion, because I'm
I think
obsessed
it's
with
worth it for
Centurion.
him to. He should definitely force out Centurion this turn, and he's looking at ways to. The question is
he's
just
gonna
like, does he want to lose Zatron on defense, or would he rather like hold splitters for it, or hold drones even? I think that holding splitters is better than holding drones.
I would hold the splitters.
Yeah. Whoa, not getting Centurion. Still, with the amount of damage he's doing, I would guess that he's going to be all right.
Yeah, I'm concerned. I'm concerned this might be it. Do you know if Apooche wins this game, or are we still going to play a game 7, or is the match done? I think the match is done, right?
Yeah, it is. Apooche is up 3-2, and or was he 3? Yeah, and now it's that's a 4-2 win for
good game is occurring.
for Apooche. Nicely done.
Yeah, that's it. That's really impressive decision making in that last game by Apooche, in my opinion. I wouldn't have had the. I mean, Apooche really. I was impressed that he didn't get Endotherm, and I was impressed that he resisted to get Centurion. When I see these units, I like to get, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, all those games were really impressive, but the last one, very good way to win.
Nice. It seems like they'll be on in a second for an interview, or at least Apooche will be, and
All right.
maybe Sven will also talk. Who knows? Oh, he's joined the group.
Hey, Apooche.
Hello.
Hello.
Congratulations. A lot of
Thank
good
you.
games in that set.
Cool games.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Thanks so much to Msven for hosting this.
We have so many questions. I don't know where we should start. I guess this most recent game is maybe fresh in everyone's minds. So I was personally really impressed that you declined to get Endotherm Kit, understanding the Urban Sentry and Zatron were strong enough for you, and B, you put off getting Centurion for a long time. I thought that maybe Sven was still ahead for a long time because I looked at the Centurion on the table, but you showed that it wasn't so necessary. How did you think about these things?
So, I wasn't really considering Endotherm Kit to be high impact in the set when I was planning. So, I was thinking about going like Arms Race into Centurion or something like that. But then when I saw the Endotherm Kit, or when I saw the Animus from Sven, it seemed like Endotherm Kit was the only reasonable play coming out of it, and I figured, okay, now I have to find a way to not die to Endotherm Kit Protoplasm, because that's sort of a combo, and you can, like, Endotherm Kit is mainly a combo unit, and you can line it up with Zamora with the Proto, so I needed to play around that. So I went heavy into Urban Sentries, knowing those could, they can sort of help you not die to it. They're pretty good against Kit. Usually the best a Kit ever does is just kill them if you get them. And that's like okay value for a Kit, but not great. And then, yeah, Zatron is also a big play around type of unit. And then also it has that backup property, which I used to great effect in that game, where it makes your opponent have to have some concessions to get out Centurion because of the click ability. Like he tried to do the greediest possible Centurion. There was no way for me to deny it, but I was allowed to kill both the Shiver Yeti and the 1 health Protoplasm.
Yeah, that might have been the deciding moment.
Yeah, so his other option would be to do a less greedy one, like not get the other Tarsier, or skip one of those NGs to allow for a force field. But then I don't have to click my Zatron. It's 12 health against the Endotherm Kit, and that's great too. So Zatron kind of getting a lot out of its option value there, and then also just really good against Endotherm Kit, just in that whenever you're against excess pressure with a Zatron, you're always threatening to like absorb on something else, and you don't have to over defend your Zatron to do it like you normally would. And yeah, Centurion like can be a bit sketchy in Zamora sets because it takes a lot of gold to set up for it. It takes a lot of gold to buy it. Your turns are very constrained, so your opponent can do a lot against you, and then all of this is happening around the turns where you're supposed to be getting a lot of conduits.
Yeah, and then the
So
Animus is kind of dead weight afterwards.
yeah, I mean, Animus bought multiple good units in that set, so I think Animus was pretty reasonable. Like it can get Endotherm Kit. If you want to do an alternative strategy, you can get Arms Races, which I thought the mirror might go in that direction, but it didn't. And then you eventually want it for Centurion, but you just have to be careful about it. And then yeah, at the end of the game, I figured I look ahead. The one thing I can do to be sure I'm ahead is force out my Centurion. Then the turn to get it was a little awkward, and I saw, actually just proto this turn, get Centurion next turn, or the turn after even,
Yeah.
maybe works better. But I don't think I needed to get Centurion to win from that position. Like I was a little down in drones for a while, but I had the conduit lead, the tempo lead, and the attacker lead, and Zatron only slightly behind Centurion in value as an absorber. Like I had like Zatron and a couple splitters versus Centurion. It's pretty even.
Yeah.
Zatron like slightly worse, but still pretty good.
To be clear, I know you know this, but I'll clarify for the people in chat. When you say that you mean once it's on the board, that Zatron is comparable to Centurion.
Oh
Normally,
yeah,
when
yeah.
you're thinking about what to buy, Centurion far outpowers or outvalues Zatron. But
Yeah,
because of
yeah. I
all the
just meant
factors
in
you talked
terms of
about.
like counting how much value we each had on board.
Yeah.
And like, do I have to go for? Since I was up tempo, I had the consideration late game, like, do I have to go for pressure or can I just like go for a long game and outvalue? And I figured either would work, but given what was in the set, I felt more comfortable going for that value line. But then, of course, the Animus ended up having the options between the Proto, which is a little more tempo-y, and the Centurion, which is a little more value-based.
Yeah. Going back to other games, there was also the Centrifuge game where you
Game
went for
one.
Centrifuge and Msven went for Tia. Yeah, game one.
Yeah, so I really liked that set. And I really liked my options in it. I was probably doing that Fuge against like that Fuge timing I went for, the turn 2 drone, Doom Drone Fuge, against anything. But what I was buying with the Fuge varied drastically based on what Msven went for.
Were you mainly
Because
thinking of Bombarder or Vi?
Vi Morinax was sort of the if he goes for a Fuge as well, or if he goes like kind of slow, I can get a Vi out and um, do some like Vi is just great, and then I have an Animus and I have some green. I get some ferals, I get some conduits, and then I just keep going ferals from there. And that's a great place to be. And then, but then against a Tia or against more pressure, the Fuge can force out just some ferals and a Bombarder. Which once I saw the conduit, I kind of rethought, do I still want this Fuge? And I was like, yeah, I still want this Fuge. Bombarder is just great. And Feral is a pretty darn good like main unit to be buying all game. So maybe I just want one Bombarder and I have Ferals and Husks and Nitrocybes and Doom Drones to round that build out.
I was definitely surprised by the Animus you made just before Fuge came in.
Yeah, so I didn't think I would do that until that turn. And then when I was planning out that turn, I was like, I have a lot of gold. I have the tech I want. I'm going to want an Animus later for Ferals, just because Feral's a good unit. I already have a Conduit. I had the Conduit because that allowed me to be threatening Tia off the Fuge.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was thinking, he doesn't have to Tia here if I'm not threatening to buy Vi with my Fuge. So if I buy the Animus, I want it anyways. It can buy Nitrocybes or Husks or whatever. So I'm not going to waste the tech. And then it forces out the Tia, allowing me to win with Bombarder. So it was really like an option Animus, like let me try to make the turns more forced for the rest of this game by getting this Animus.
Okay, interesting. That's what I came up with, or what I thought you were doing after you did it. But I wouldn't have thought of it, I think, if I was in your position.
Yeah, I didn't think of it until like if I had like a really easy turn there, I might not have thought of it, but I was like, I have all this spare gold. Like, am I buying tech? Am I floating? What am I doing here? And that forced me to think like, what does each resource building do in this position? Oh wow, Animus is actually really good. So I'm kind of glad I had that awkward turn.
There's a question in Twitch chat that's about the Tatsu game. There was a moment in that game when you bought the second Tatsu and made this gambit where you like sacrificed a couple drones to get it out, and then from then on it was like, wow. To me, it looked pretty shaky. Like I felt like I thought maybe Sven was better and you were going to have a hard time and he could like stabilize, but then you managed to do it. Were you pretty confident that like the second Tatsu was like, oh, no problem, or were you tempted to do a more conservative line?
I would say that the line that tempted me was the Tatsu. I was not 100% confident in that Tatsu, but it met my goals for that game, which were I want to stop him from getting Tatsu ever. And I'm willing to make sacrifices to do that because then blood packs are not as good for him because the Grimbotch gets more value, and I can get Doom Walls. I never had an infusion grid, so I wanted to be able to rely on Doom Walls in the end game. And then it sort of also forced him to remain on that attack total. Like to take the gambit, he has to spend all of his red and not buy more attack. And a lot of my plays were based around that idea. The idea that like I'm gonna make a play that forces these smorgases to click, and I'm gonna keep doing that until he's sacrificed enough econ that Tatsu is never happening. And that was sort of the idea behind that play. I don't know if it was the best play there. Like another consideration is just getting another Polywall. I could have gone Polywall Smorkus there. I think that was sort of my default plan at first, and then as I was thinking about it more, I'm like, you can only breach for one. All my attackers have 2 health. I could get another Tatsu here. And I really like Tatsu.
We get to the real reason right at the end.
Yes. It's like I love those types of plays. Like Tatsu is such a high value unit that it can justify those types of plays. So I just love doing it. But I wouldn't do it if I thought it was a throw. I thought it very well might be the highest value play I could make.
Oh, okay.
Considering the Blood Pact, considering the Doom Wall in the set, I figured, I have good emergency options. I did take the time to count. He'll still have 7 attack. I'll have 9 drones. I can deal with that. And if he's remotely cautious, I can get a Doom Wall immediately, like Doom Wall Blood Pact. If he goes full in, then I have a slightly shaky turn, but like I can do the Doom Wall Gambit, or I can do a Wall Blood Pact, which is what I ended up going for. But I was kind of noting that I had viable options.
There was another game that me and 307 were a little bit fascinated by. It was the game where it had Wild Drone, and it looked kind of like there was like could be high econ, like it had Centurion and some stuff. And then you popped out this Tia in the middle, and it was like, oh, okay, a Tia came, and then Sven had to like do some rhinos that soaked for a little while and build a bunch of walls instead of Centurion. And it seemed like 307 in particular mentioned that he thought that the Tia was really, really painful and expected you to win because of how awkward it seemed like it ought to be with Sven. I think you had 4 damage behind the Tia, but then it turned out that Sven just sort of like, okay, he soaked those rhinos and like, then he had more econ, and then he built some stuff, and he won, and like it was no big deal. And I wonder how you read that game.
Yeah, and he did a really good job of defending that. And then this is the one where he had. This was not the one where he held the Tia once. Yeah, he didn't buy a Tia till the very end.
Right.
I bought the Tia thinking, like, I wasn't setting up for the Tia originally, but I bought it noting that he was multiple turns away from Centurion, so it looked like it was doing decent work.
What was the plan with the conduit originally?
I mean, the conduit would buy my Centurion. And I think I bought the conduit on a turn where I was like definitely buying a resource building, and I sat there and I counted what my next few turns were if I bought Animus, which was the other option, and it just like didn't look good. I was cutting too much econ, so I went conduit instead, knowing that it buys Centurion, it buys Tia, it buys cluster bolts, so you're never like too sad about floating extra green.
That's how I thought, but 307th mentioned that he thought that Cluster Bolt was like Cluster Bolt off one conduit was like a little too inefficient to get, so he wasn't too happy with the conduit before he saw the Tia.
Yeah. I mean, it's the main idea was that this conduit was necessary to get Centurion, and I don't have a great play there, so getting the resource building that stores its resource is kind of what I wanted to do. But I wasn't like, oh, this is an amazing conduit thing. So yeah, the Tia was sort of based around the idea that the set has good like high value options when you're up on tempo, like Hellhound, and like Cluster Bolt and stuff. So I wanted to take a tempo lead, considering that he didn't have he wasn't close to a Centurion, like it would be difficult to set it up, and like the option to kill wild drones always makes Centurion harder to set up because you have to have enough spare gold that if they go for max wild drone kill, you can buy it, but then you also have to have enough defense prepared that if they go for max defense kill, you can buy it. So, I mean, he just did a really good job of threading the needle there and balancing that out and getting it and maintaining a larger econ, getting the Blood Ragers that he needed, and so he just handled it well. Like I wouldn't look at that set and go like, oh yeah, mid game Tia before Centurions come out. I would look at that set and say, oh yeah, mid game Tia after Centurions and Blood Ragers come out. Like Tia definitely an important unit in that set and is supposed to happen. But I went for one very early, sort of just based on like what was going on the board. And it looked like it almost worked. But then at the end, we were pretty even on attack, and he managed to stay pretty up on economy because I wasn't really targeting the wilds with my Tia, and he was able to soak it out.
All right.
Legit.
Yeah, I like the funny thing about that game was like how little Blood Ragers ended up mattering.
Yeah, with Mesa Wild Drones each side.
Yeah, and like the
Blood
Tia
Rager.
timing meant I wasn't getting Blood Ragers because I'm doing like 12 damage, and he wasn't getting Blood Ragers because he doesn't have like 7 and a red to spare on pure greed.
Yeah.
But then we each got a couple later.
Get more Wild Drones, maybe? Like, because Blood Rager was already in the set, there was less value to, like, not having Wild Drones.
Yeah, that's sort of always been a thing, like with the old Wild Drone as well. So I was definitely, when I was picking the open, I'm like, it's a big econ set. Wild Drone's good. It's a Blood Rager set, so Wild Drone's also pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I could go on. You mind sticking around? So
Sure.
there was one other. It was the one against Sven where he had this natural green blue opening with like borehole and plasma fire, and then you played, and it's player one. Like I know it's hard to get the green, but you played slow conduit into like drone blast forge animus, and I was like animus.
Yeah, the Animus was bad.
Should I take that as like a sign of desperation that like you didn't know what was a good opening for player one in that set, or did you have a sort of theory behind this animus?
I had a theory behind the Animus. I think it was wrong. I think slow conduit was probably right for me regardless.
Yeah, I think so.
And I should have gone green blue mirror. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've like won borehole plasma fire mirrors as player one in tournaments before, so it's not like, oh, don't even try. But and I think I should have tried that. But my idea was that, and like if you remember the game, you can see the idea ended up being kind of flawed. Was that Aegis meant plasma fire was weaker and arms race was better, and then Sentinel was also a good green red unit to be buying. But I just didn't have enough technology to like put all of those tools together, and I
Yeah, like you
like
need to be able to
never
buy
bought an
Aegis.
Aegis. So at the end of the game, I'm just like, oh yeah, Aegis justified my build. That's why I bought no Aegises.
Yeah, I
And
guess
then
that
I
there you're
died.
trying to use the Aegis to justify being on the slower end of the plasma fire borehole, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I should have gone for. I like looking at the set. I was like, oh, Aegis is here. There's some like follow up pressure type of units like plasma fire and grenade mech. So I originally wanted to go Gauss Fabricator, and I spent a bit of time in the opening like looking at Gauss Fabricator lines, and I think maybe I still should have gone for one. But I was thinking about the player one lines where you like either drone conduit instead of the slow conduit, or slow conduit into double conduit, and each of those I just have to eat a borehole attack. Um,
Yeah, like getting the Ghost tab up is pretty hard for both players.
yeah, I think that's what I should have gone for. I think maybe slow conduit into more conduits into and a forge into like fabricator pixie into now I have a blast forge and 3 conduits and I can like buy Aegises. Like you eat a borehole attack there, and then I think in his opening he didn't set up a plasma fire to immediately follow the borehole, but he could have. Oh no, he did.
Yeah,
So then the next turn it's like the next turn's really rough because you're up against 5 damage and you have no defenses, so you can go like wall force field, drone hold, NGs or something, and then like try to either get a plasma fire or some boreholes before you're on pure defense, and then just try to defend with Aegis and wall and hope that your Gauss Fab gets there. I think something along those lines would have been better for me, but just at the time I wasn't confident, and I'm like maybe red stuff, and then that did not work.
maybe third engineer actually. Uh, like you go third engineer. If they go Ghost Fab, then like because you're not going to be putting pressure on them, they'll be overtech.
Yeah,
The 3 conduit Ghost Fab, and then if they go like borehole into plasma fire, then like you can wall it off and like build up your conduits and hope that Aegis pulls you through,
yeah.
or
The
maybe just
reason I didn't go third engineer is because I was thinking about these fast fab lines, and then like considering that I didn't go for one. Yeah, third engineer makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
Um,
definitely a
just
tough set
because,
for player one. Um,
yeah, I would definitely not call it an auto win set until I had analyzed it for like 3 hours though, because there was a lot of stuff you could try.
yeah. Oh, and the other speaking of sets that might not be auto wins, that would be the Tatsu set, right? Where
Oh, the
I was at like I feel like that set was kind of tough for player one as well.
yeah,
What do you think Msven should have done there?
I don't
Let's just bet.
know. I was when I looked at the set first, I was like, "Oh, this is one of those like third NG into spam Xenos and Tatsu sets." And then when he didn't go third NG, I was like, "Oh wait, no, this is one of those Smorkus into spam Tatsu
So
sets."
he reminded
Oh,
you
I'm
of what
really
the red
favored.
play was.
So maybe he could have baited me with third NG, and I would have followed. Um,
just got to blitz out your turns like style.
yeah, I don't know though. There's like Polywall can help slow it down because it's got 6 health, and Tattoo of course has 5 damage, or 5 threes rather. Uh, and then but then there's like Smorkus and Borehole really help you deal with the counterattack.
Was Borehole in the set?
Or not Borehole, Blood Pact. I just
Oh, yeah.
said the wrong word.
Mhm.
Smorkus and Blood Pact let you deal with the counterattack. So yeah, I don't know. There's again a lot of stuff you could try, but you don't feel good trying any of it.
Yeah, I
But
liked
maybe
Msven's try
something
there,
works.
but it didn't work.
Yeah, that like maybe there's some kind of Xeno stuff where you get Xenos and then you're like getting polywalls and they have to kill the polywalls and like you just get a bunch of damage and you overwhelm them despite the blood pacts. Or you just like if you stop a lot of tattoos from coming out, you can probably end up on full absorb there. But yeah, where do you go from there as like the defensive player? When I was before I went Fastimus, the first thing I did was I was like, okay, my original interpretation of this set was Xenos and Tatsus. What if I go Natural Conduit? Like, where does this game go? And then I just like counted out the next few turns, and I'm like, oh, I get crushed. So that's why
You're like, wait, let's be on the other side of this.
yeah. I was like, okay, so by the time I'm like starting to attack, he has like a Smorkus, a Tatsu, and like can go Rhino Blastforge, like click Smorkus, and then like he's got an infusion grid, and I'm like barely have a 3 attack, so it was not gonna work for me to try to go slower than his natural animus.
So one of the other games, interesting games, was the Fission Turret Thermite build that you did
Oh yeah,
versus Msven's kind of like Rhino Smorkus Thermite.
yeah. That set was interesting. Actually, the other day or yesterday, mquander totally destroyed me with this like fission into Venge with Lance Tooth involved, which is like another absorb selling unit. And I would like analyze it after, and I'm like, wow, there is just like my line that I tried just was there's no improvement that could make it work. So I was like in the mindset of like, dang, like fission into Venge with absorb denial. That is like really sick.
Oh, that's cool. Mquander called that in this set too, and I was like, no, Avenge isn't good.
Oh really?
Yeah, like my perspective is like Fission was already good, and Venge makes Fission even better.
Yeah. It definitely does. And whenever I see Grenade Mech and Thermite Core together, I try to force it out and it doesn't work and I lose. So I actually said out loud, do not force Grenade Mech Thermite in this game. Like when I was going and I was like, you know what, I'm doing fission, like that'll stop me. And then I ended up having a good way to get one Grenade Mech out, which, you know, synergizes with the Thermites and then also synergizes with the Venge. So I liked my Grenade Mech, but I'm glad I didn't try to just go pure Grenade Mech Thermite because it tends to just die to like faster red attackers into pure Thermite, which is exactly what he went for. So I'm really glad I went for the Fission line. And yeah, Fission just an incredible unit, especially when that click ability is giving you a lot of value. And in addition, NGs that provide bonus value are good against Thermite Core, and so that makes Fission like also better against Thermite Core because you either force them to give you absorb to deny you 3 green, or you get that 3 green without having to put a lot of effort into getting the NGs up. So it like Fission's even better.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
that
nice
was
point.
evident later on when you made these like easy sort of gambits against the Fission energy.
So Fission is like a very, very indirect way of playing around threat, but it does do it eventually.
Yeah,
I mean, not that you
like
go out of your way for it, but like it's one perk of Fission Turret.
yeah, and early in the game I kept allowing gambits where, or not gambits, but I gave options where he can spend all of his pixies to deny absorb or click thermites to deny absorb. But the issue with spending all of his pixies kept being that it would remove the option of clicking half of a thermite by using a pixie.
Oh, that's why he didn't take it.
I
When we
didn't
were watching, we
appreciate that
thought that was
subtlety.
just a mistake by Msven.
Yeah,
That was
I
the
think on some of them, like on one of them, that might have been okay. Like he might have still had 1 rhino stamina. But it's something you have to be careful about when you're evaluating these options, is like, how granular is my ability to click thermite cores next turn? Because sometimes you can end up giving up a pixie that way.
So in that game, I would have, as player 1, played just like you with this vision opening. But as Sven, as player 2, I don't know what I would have done, because it makes a lot of sense to me for him to play Fastimus into red the way he did, but it also makes a lot of sense to me for him to play Natural Conduit because of this good green-blue stuff. Would you have played like him, or would you have also tried to make a green-blue mirror?
I probably would have gone for green-blue mirror, and as the higher economy player, I like going for grenade mechs with clicks. Like maybe still open fission, and then just try to do a lot of resource trading with grenade mechs, and just prevent the opponent from sort of reaching critical mass. I don't know if that would have worked. There was also Drake, and then I felt like Windsor was too slow, but that set did have Aegis in it, which is just a good unit at sort of dealing with lots of pressure and just like if they're keep on clicking fissions and you keep on making Aegises, you're not as sad as if you're making like walls and NGs. So maybe just like go green blue, go slightly bigger, take more advantage of like the Aegis, the Drake, the grenade mech. But I mean, I went for that fast conduit because I felt pretty confident that it could work well.
All right, interesting. I think that there were also ways Sven could have. There are different ways he could have played the red blue.
Yeah. It was a little awkward how there was like a perforator, a Smorkus, and another Smorkus on one Animus, and it was like a perforator that when you already have Smorkus is kind of lower value.
Yeah, one less threat.
And the additional Smorkus also has trouble getting good value. Like it's often just the best purchase that turn anyways, because like if the click on your other Smorkus isn't giving you a lot of value, and you don't have a good way to spend both red, it's just like effectively like 5 gold for an attacker. It's pretty good, but you don't feel great doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I feel like I learned all of the secrets behind these games to my satisfaction. 307th, you got anything else?
No, just to say that like all those games were really cool. I think a lot of asymmetric games, a lot of interesting decisions, like the Centurion versus Endotherm kit and stuff like that. So a really great show match.
Well, thank you for casting it.
No problem.
Our pleasure.
All right. Yeah. See you guys later. I'm not sure if is that it for the stream, Sven? You can say in chat if.
Nice. Okay,
Right.
yeah, I guess that's a wrap. And yeah, I personally hope Msven does this again, because this was cool to cast, and I bet it was cool to watch. And I like these sweet games. So
Yeah.
thanks a lot to Sven for making this possible, and thanks for Apooche for kicking his butt.
Yeah. Great. See you guys later.